All right, it looks like it's streaming live, so.
All right, here it comes. All right, setting up meeting.
Again, welcome everyone. Thanks for your patience.
All right, there we go. All
right, it looks like it's streaming live,
so. Awesome. All right. Oh, that's weird. I hear myself talking in the YouTube and I have to go mute it.
And I heard my voice too.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that.
Excellent.
All right, let me pull the presentation up. Oop, I have to share screen first. All right. I believe you guys should be able to see my screen now.
I see it. Great.
All right. There we go. All right, Essen, do you want to just start slowly getting into this? We can introduce ourselves in the program.
Sure. Let me go ahead and hit record on this end and we'll roll. Let's see. Oh, Jessica, quick question. Should I record on the computer or to the cloud?
I say probably the computer.
Okay.
Well, I know what to do the cloud. Okay.
Okay.
I saw that thing that was recording.
Excellent. Great. All right. And thank you again, everyone, for your patience as we get started with the Book Bonanza presentation. My name is Allison. I am a fiction librarian here at the Schaumburg Township District Library.
And I'm Jessica, and I'm also a fiction librarian at the Schaumburg Township District Library.
We offer these Book Bonanza programs periodically, and they're really a lot of fun for us to prepare because what we will be doing in the course of our hour or so this morning is letting you know about some new release titles that are coming out. And it's always kind of tricky because there's lots of new releases, especially because of the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of books were delayed publishing dates. And also summer and early fall tend to be pretty heavy publishing months. So there's a lot of titles. So it's always kind of fun for us to choose some that we think might be of interest to you. We tend to pick some best-selling authors and then maybe even some debut authors or books that sound particularly interesting. So we're going to be going ahead and we'll throughout the morning, we have a PowerPoint presentation with slides, and there's going to be titles and authors of books. We're not going to have time to talk about every single book, but we'll be talking about ones maybe that are particularly interesting. And if we have time at the end or you want more information, please feel free to go ahead and use that chat feature. We also wanted to say hello to anyone who's watching on YouTube or who might be watching this on the local cable channels that will be showing this as well. So I want to say a hello to everyone out there tuning in today, whether it's morning, evening, or the middle of the night.
All right.
All right. And just as we delve in, wanted to just bring out a couple of things. So a lot of times Jessica and I both work at the fiction desk, and we'll get questions like, oh, I want a good book to read, or where do you get ideas for books? We just want to let you know that we do have this printed publication here at the library. It's called Book Page. This is the August issue. You can get that in person at the Central Library or either branch. You could also get it pick up via curbside if you'd like, by giving us a call. It's also online as well, but I kind of find it a little bit more fun to read the print copy. It's really nice because it gives you some author background, and it also provides just some information about some even debut fiction titles, nonfiction. It also has teen and youth and audio. So it's a really great place to go just to get some ideas of maybe a next good book to read.
And we do currently have the June, July, and August issues. And if you stop by the fiction desk at Central, we'd be happy to give you a copy.
Exactly. We also have at our website, schaumburglibrary.org. We have something on that homepage called Media Match. And that's something where you can just kind of fill out a form with some of your interests as a reader or even as a watcher. If you wanted some information or some movie suggestions or music suggestions, you would list your interests, maybe some authors you like or don't like, and then a librarian will get back to you with some reading suggestions. So we've noticed some people have been using that during the time when we were closed to the public, and it's a helpful way. We can also get you connected with ebooks or audiobooks if you're interested in that as well. And as always, feel free to call the fiction desk. That is staffed Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 10 p.m. as well as Saturdays 10 to 6 and Sundays 12 to 5. So someone is always there to answer your question about book recommendations.
All right.
All right, so we always love to talk about books that we're excited about. So Jessica and I will just mention a few that we've personally read that are new. Mine are newer, and we will just go ahead and let you know. If you're interested, again, throughout the presentation in any of these, you can put any of these books on reserve. So you can make notes of them. We can do it for you, or you can also do it through schaumburglibrary.org. So feel free to reserve any of these for in-person, branch, or curbside pickup. So first of all, I'm really excited about this book called The Vanishing Half by Bennett that I just finished. And it was just a fascinating book, very thought-provoking. I finished it about a week ago and I'm still thinking about it. So it starts out and it's set in the 50s. And it's set in a town called Mallard, which is a small town in Louisiana. And it's predominantly an African-American community. And the community prides themselves on being light-skinned. And the goal is for each subsequent generation to be more light-skinned than the current one. There's these two twins and they run away and leave the town when they're in high school. One of them ends up marrying a very dark-skinned man, and one of them ends up passing as white. So they end up, their lives take very different trajectories, and it follows them and their daughters. And I just thought the characters were really well developed. And as I said, it was very thought provoking. It's really kind of soaring to the top of bestseller lists. We have some hot picks of the library, and I think that stamp on it says it's a Good Morning America book club pick. So there's definitely a lot to think about. I found it to be very well written and I absolutely loved it. The Suicide House by Charlie Donnelly is definitely a different type of book, but nonetheless, I did enjoy it. It's definitely a thriller. If you like kind of creepy thrillers, this is the book for you. This is his 5th book. And it starts out and there's a brutal murder at an elite prep school in Indiana. And Rory Moore is a forensic reconstructionist and she is investigating what exactly happened. So the murder was pinned on a teacher and they don't think it was actually the teacher. So it was really riveting. Again, it has to be, you have to like that type of book, but I really did, and it really kept me guessing until the very, very end. I absolutely did not want to put it down. So there are my 2 recent reads. Very different books, but I thoroughly enjoyed both of them.
All right, so I am reading the last book on the screen, Dear Mr. Knightley. So I've been sort of in a rereading binge since the pandemic began. My brain was just not focusing on new books, so I went back to some of my old favorites, like comfort reads. So it was nice to sort of like revisit old friends. So Dear Mr. Knightley is kind of a play on Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster, if anyone has read that book. It's a children's book. It was published in the early 1900s, and it's about this girl named Jerusha, and she's an orphan, and she gets this grant. This gentleman agrees to pay for her schooling, but in return, the only thing that he wants is for her to write letters to him to keep him updated on her progress and how school is going. And so the twist in the book is, without realizing it, she actually meets what she calls Daddy Longlegs, because she's only essentially seen that he was very tall. I think she saw him through like the office door or something. And so she has actually already met him by the time we get to the end of the book, and his identity is revealed. So in Dear Mr. Knightley, it's the same thing. There's Sam, who is the main character. She is an orphan, and it takes place in Chicago. And so she gets this grant from this organization that will pay for her to go to grad school at Northwestern for journalism. And again, the only thing that it's asking for is to write letters to this Mr. Knightley. So she does. She starts writing and she starts telling him about her life, her background, her love interests. And she does meet Mr. Knightley some point in the book, but I don't want to spoil it. So I will leave you with that. We do have a copy at the library, so please do put yourself on hold if you think you're interested.
I know that's one of your favorite books, Jessica.
It's one of my favorite books. Yeah.
Yes, you have it on your staff picks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this book Bonanza program is generally going to be covering titles that are coming out in August or that just came out in August and September. So we're covering those months, but we wanted to tell you about one we are both very excited about. So Jessica and I are both fans of the author Kristen Hanna. We both have enjoyed The Great Alone. She has also written The Nightingale and many other titles. So she has this new book called The Four Winds, and that is actually coming out in February. So it's 6 months away, but perhaps something to look forward to for those of you who are Kristen Hanna fans, and you are able to put this book on hold as of right now. We have it on order. So that's why we wanted to mention it. So The Four Winds is actually set during the Great Depression, and our main character is it's during the Dust Bowl era of that. And it starts out set in Texas, and she faces the decision about whether or not she should be moving to California. So again, there's a lot of buzz about this book. I'm sure there will be even more so over the months to come. So just wanted to point out The Four Winds if you are a Kristen Hanna fan and would like to put this title on hold. One of the things I appreciate about her books is that they're all very different. I think she's an excellent writer, and she has a great writing style, but she approaches different topics. She'll do historical fiction. She'll do a book set in Alaska. That was The Great Alone. So this one I'm very excited about. I know Jessica is too.
Oh yeah. 2 thumbs up, very excited. All right, so let's get started.
Or back to more the present day, I guess.
Yeah, present day. So we're going to cover just a few books that have already been published. We want to cover the past week or so, just in case you missed anything. So what came out last Tuesday, and which the library has, and you can place yourself on hold for. So we have Auntie Poldy and the Handsome Antonio by Mario Giordano, and this is part of a series. And then there is Bare Necessity by James Gould Bourne. And this book was sort of touted as for fans of The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson, if anyone is a fan of that book. There is this single father to an 11-year-old boy. The wife died in a car crash about a year ago. Both of them are struggling with what happened. You know, this father, he's trying to pay bills, to take care of, himself and his son. So what he does is he goes out and buys this sort of old, dilapidated panda costume. And he starts performing sort of like in the street, trying to earn some tips, trying to earn some money. And one day he accidentally runs into his son while he's in this costume. And the son doesn't know that that's his dad. And so the son starts interacting, with this panda and starts opening up to him, and these are all things that, the son won't tell his father. And so, the dad is trying to deal with not only his own grief, but now he's listening, to his son opening up. So it seems like a great book. And I loved The Rosie Project, if anyone else has not read that. So there's that one. And then we have The Boys Club by Erica Katz. We have Bronte's Mistress by Finola Austin. And then we have The Cabinets of Barnaby, Maine by Elsa Hart. So in this book, it is set in 1703 London. This Barnaby, Maine is kind of a very eccentric character. He builds these cabinets and he fills them with all these rare books and plants and stones and other objects. And so this young girl, Cecily, comes in, and she's really into like botany, and she's looking for a plant. But Mr. Barnaby Maine gets murdered. And so the book is about Cecily trying to solve the murder and get into sort of like the dark underworld of these collectors and all of the eccentricities. So it definitely seems like something up my alley. So hopefully it'll be yours too. And then the last book is Convince Me by Nina Sadowsky.
And I'll mention a couple things about a few too there. So Convince Me, a very charismatic man is found dead. He was loved by his family and colleagues and neighbors. And so it's kind of a mystery as to, well, how did this charismatic, wonderful man end up dead? And then various secrets are uncovered. Just wanted to mention about that Boys Club by Erica Katz, that's been optioned to Netflix. And that book is a fiction book. It's a debut, and it's about scandal and power in corporate America. And Bronte's Mistress, that would be a great title for Bronte or historical fiction fans. Even though it is fiction, it is about the scandalous love affair between Branwell Bronte, who was a tutor, and Lydia Robinson, and how she brought down the Bronte family. So if that sounds up your alley, that might be one that you would enjoy. Okay, more August 4th. And also wanted to point out that you might, books are normally released and published on Tuesdays. Occasionally there's a different day of the week, which you'll see later on in the presentation, but typically Tuesday is our release date for new titles. So yeah, okay, I'll do this. I'll lead the slide then. The Day Lincoln Lost by Charles Rosenberg. We have The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaki Amizi. Every Bone a Prayer by Ashley Blooms. This is a debut title, and it's been advertised as a title for fans of Where the Crawdads Sing. The Falcon Always Wings Twice is a Meg Lanslow mystery. That's part of that series by Donna Andrews. The Friendship List by Susan Mallory. She writes some series, but this is a standalone. It's about a single mom whose friend challenges to push her out of her comfort zone. She's a 30-something widow, and it's a romance. So it's a light book, if that might sound of interest to you. And then The Hollow Ones by Guillermo del Toro is a supernatural thriller. And Jessica, I didn't know if you had any additional thoughts on any of these.
Yes, so Guillermo del Toro is actually a pretty famous filmmaker, so you may have heard his name before. And this is his second book, I believe. I know he came out with one a year or two ago. So if you're a horror fan, I would definitely recommend taking a look into it. And so like Allison said, Every Bone a Prayer is touted as good for fans of Where the Crawdads Sing. So there's this girl named Misty. She lives in the Appalachian Mountains. She lives with her sister Penny and with their single mother. And then all of a sudden, Penny is talking about all these strange objects that are appearing. Misty's not quite sure what's going on. She's not remembering what's happening. But there is some themes of there are bad things happening to Misty. So is that the cause of what's everything happening? So it's set in Appalachia again. So if you're a fan of Where the Crawdads Sing, I would definitely give it a look. And some more from Tuesday, August 4th.
That was a big day. Sometimes there seem to be more titles. And again, we are trying to mention some best-selling authors, but also some debut authors who have some good things coming out. So The Last Mrs. Summers by Rhys Bowen, that's part of the Royal Spinus series. That's a mystery series. The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis. She writes historical fiction, and I've never read any of her titles, but they've always intrigued me. But this one particularly intrigues me, and that's because, as Jessica's nodding her head too, there's a library connection. So it's a series of book thefts has impacted the New York Public Library in like the early 1900s. And there's two strong-willed women who are kind of picking up the pieces of this. So there's historical, a little bit of mystery, but any book with a library connection obviously has library staff members really excited. So I love the cover of it too. I stepped foot in the New York Public Library once, and it was really stunning. So yeah, this one, and she's written The Address and several other historical fiction books.
Yeah, I haven't read any of her books before, but I think I'm definitely going to put myself on hold for this one because a librarian cannot resist a book about libraries. So, so we
This-
also have,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
So we also have The Silent Wife by Karen Slaughter, and that's another book in the Will Trent series. We have Sweet Sorrow by David Nichols, and then finally The Wicked Sister by Karen Dion. So this last book is about this woman named Rachel, and she has voluntarily locked herself away in a psychiatric institution for the past 15 years. She was accused and she was told that she killed her parents. And so she's not remembering what's going on. She feels guilty because, did I do this to my parents? And so at one point she leaves, and what she did, she goes back to her family's log cabin where she feels some peace, kind of feels like home. And so she's not entirely convinced that she's the one who killed her parents. And so she sets out to try to solve the murder. So for fans of probably sort of psychological thriller books, this would probably be a good one for you.
And Karen Dion, she wrote a book called The Marsh King's Daughter. And yes, The Wicked Sister has a lot of, it's gotten very good reviews. It's been written up on a lot of library journals. So definitely could be a title to watch.
All right. Some new books, finally.
These come out tomorrow under Tuesday, August 11th. So we have The Boy in the Field by Margot Livesey. Choppy Water by Stuart Woods is part of the Stone Barrington series. The Key Lime Crime by Lucy Burdett is part of the Key West Food Critic Mysteries, which is also a series. Little Scratch by Rebecca Watson. And The Midwife Murders by James Patterson. He, of course, has lots of books that are published. We're mentioning probably at least 3 today. So in this particular book, there is a missing patient at a New York City hospital, and then more patients go missing. And so the setting of it is hospital. So we've got a medical setting for that. So that's The Midwife Murders.
Okay, so to go back to just 1 or 2. So The Boy in the Field by Margot Livesey. She is the author of The Flight of Gemma Hardy, which was a play on Jane Eyre. And so this book is set in 1999. It follows these 3 siblings, these 3 teenagers, and they find this poor boy who's bloody and unconscious in the field. And so thankfully they were there and they were able to save him. But all 3 of them now are changed in different ways. They want some answers to some of life's big questions. And so the book sort of shows how just one event can just change you completely. And so also the Key Lime Crime by Lucy Burdett, those are part of the cozy mysteries. So cozy mysteries are ones that are usually gentle, if that's a good word for it, but they're not necessarily real descriptive. They're not gruesome. They're not bloody. A lot of times the murder, if anything, sort of takes place off page. It doesn't happen while you're reading it. So if you're not quite a fan of some of the more gritty ones, I would definitely give Cozy Mystery a try.
And they tend to have titles that are puns quite often.
They're very creative with some of these titles.
Yes, sometimes they rhyme. And a lot of readers enjoy them, especially there's many series. So if you like one, you can progress through a series. So, all right, let's then progress through to August 11th with some more titles there.
So Mums in Mayhem by Amanda Flower is another cozy mystery. And she is quite a prolific author in the mystery section. So we have No Offense by Meg Cabot. And if the name sounds familiar to you, she is the author who wrote the Princess Diaries books. And those were the movies with Anne Hathaway and, oh goodness, I just blanked on her name. The mother, she plays Mary Poppins. Why am I forgetting?
Julie Andrews?
Julie Andrews, thank you. Slight brain thing this morning. So this is actually the second book of the series she started called No Judgments. So this takes place on Little Bridge Island in the Florida Keys. This main character, Molly, is the head of the youth services department at the local library. And one day she finds that this baby has been abandoned and left in the bathroom at the library. So obviously they call the police. And so who they send out, this policeman, John, he's convinced that this is some sort of terrible crime. Molly's not so sure. And so they sort of clash over, how to handle this. And you can see by the book cover that they are probably arguing with themselves right now. So then we have A Private Cathedral by James Lee Burke. And that is a new book in the Dave Robichaux series. We have Say No More by Karen Rose, and that's part of her Sacramento series. And then we have Then She Vanished by T. Jefferson Parker, and that is part of his Roland Ford series. And then the last book is We Are All the Same in the Dark by Julia Heberlin. And so this is about a town and a girl was kidnapped 10 years ago. The case is unsolved. Nobody knows it happens. This girl's brother, Wyatt, was eventually cleared by the police of any wrongdoing, but he becomes the town's pariah. He's not really welcome. He doesn't really fit in. But one day he finds a dead girl in the field. And so, of course, this is bringing up all sorts of memories for him. And so, they send out a cop named Odessa to, investigate this. And she also feels connected to the case. So it's kind of an intertwined series, book about, what happened to these girls, who did it. So.
Yes, it's set in a Texas town and definitely touted as a suspense thriller. So it got great reviews from several journals like Publishers Weekly, Book List. So again, if that's a genre that you enjoy, We Are All the Same in the Dark might be one to add to your list. All right, should we move forward then to August 18th? So this is a little bit later in the month. So Atomic Love by Jenny Fields. I love how this is advertised. It's a novel of science, love, espionage, beautiful writing, and a heroine who carves a strong path in the world of men. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing left to want. That's what Ann Patchett, an author, said about this book. This one sounds really interesting and just based on that. But basically our main character in this book she's a physicist, and it's set in 1950. So she's working on the Manhattan Project, and then she's also involved in a love relationship with a colleague. So the Manhattan Project ends, her relationship ends, and then the life goes on. And then Rosalind, our main character, ends up getting back in touch with the man she was in love with years later. We've got an FBI involvement. So it has a lot in it, and it's a book I think that has a broad appeal. So we'll throw that one out there for you, Atomic Love. The Bangtail Ghost by Keith McCafferty is part of the Sean Stranahan mystery series. Blood Victory by Christopher Rice. That's a Burning Girl thriller, part of that series. We have Grown Ups by Emma Jane Unsworth. The Heat Wave by Kate Reardon. The Jackal by J.R. Ward, which is part of the Black Dagger Brotherhood prison camp series.
This is the first book.
Okay, of this
new series. Yeah.
Yes. And those are in the science fiction fantasy section.
Correct.
Then we have The Less Dead by Denise Mina. So in this book, we have Margot, our main character, who's exhausted by her job, has just gotten rid of her boyfriend, and she's mourning the loss of her adoptive mother. And then she learns that her birth mother was murdered, and she starts receiving letters from the killer. So that's in the mystery section. Jessica, did you have any additional
Nope, you
Points
pretty
about,
much
nope, we
covered
covered it.
the
Okay.
notes that I had.
Okay.
All right.
Continuing also.
Yeah, continuing. So we have The Patron Saint of Pregnant Girls by Ursula Heggie. We have The Switch by Beth O'Leary, which I know Allison is going to want to talk about, so I'll leave that to her. We have Royal by Danielle Steele. Now, I've never read a book by her, but this book sounds really interesting. So it's set in 1943, and it's the King and Queen of England send Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret to the countryside to protect them from the war. And so they live with this noble family who tries to give them very normal sort of childhood experiences. They fall in love. Oh my goodness, I am reading the wrong set of things. That's okay, but it's about it's about Princess Elizabeth and sort of, her earlier years, during the war, and this will, start leading up to when she is coronated as queen. And then we have The Second Mother by Jenny Milchman. We have Three Perfect Liars by Heidi Perks. And then we have When These Mountains Burn by David Joy.
So I'll add some thoughts on a few. Did you want to mention about When These Mountains Burn?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I was going to mention the patron saint of pregnant girls. So in this book, 3 children are either killed or they're lost in a freak accident in Germany. A wave washes over these children, and the mothers or those families connected are obviously devastated. And this book is recommended for readers who enjoy The Light Between Oceans or Water for Elephants. It's written with beautiful prose and about family relationships and really deep characters. So again, maybe not a feel-good book, but it sounds like a very a well-written and thought-provoking book. So that's The Patron Saint of Pregnant Girls. And then The Switch by Beth O'Leary. So Beth O'Leary wrote The Flat Chair, which I know at least one participant here has read and enjoyed. It's set in England, or The Switch is as well. And it sounds like a cute, romantic, feel-good book. So maybe that's something you're in the mood in just about now. So in this book, we have a younger woman, and she is forced to take a 2-month sabbatical from work. So because she's burned out. So she ends up escaping to her grandmother's house to rest. So the grandmother is actually newly single, and she's about to turn 80. So she'd like a second chance at love, but there's not many options in her small village. So they just decide to try a 2-month swap. So the grandmother goes to live where the granddaughter, the younger daughter, lives in a flat. And she's learning about casual dating and how to use apps and city life. Whereas the granddaughter is living in this quaint, remote village. So, they're swapping lives, and will they find love and happiness? I guess we'll have to read the book. It sounds kind of like a movie, but it sounds kind of cute.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a lot of books for August 25th as well. So we have Bitter Pill by Fern Michaels, and that's part of her Sisterhood series. We have Catch Me If You Can by Miranda James, and that is another cozy mystery, and I believe these ones are set in a bookshop.
Yes, I think so too.
We have Every Kind of Wicked by Lisa Black, and that's a book in her Gardner and Renner series. And then we have The Exiles by Christina Baker Klein. And so this book is set in early 1800s London. This young girl becomes pregnant, and so she is shipped off to Australia, which was a punishment sort of back then. So she's pregnant, she's on this boat, across the ocean to get to Australia. She makes friends with another girl who's on board, And so also tied into the story is the daughter of one of the local Aboriginal chiefs was adopted by the new governor because her parents were killed. And so it sort of intertwines the three stories of these girls. So, you know, we don't read a lot about early Australia, so I'm definitely interested in reading that. And so then we have Final Cut by S.J. Watson. And as we know, those are usually sort of psychological thriller books. And so for this one, a documentary filmmaker travels to a fishing village wanting to make a new movie and finds this mystery of this disappeared local girl. And so he sort of gets caught up in it, and then he sort of takes that on himself. And so then we have Hidden by Laura Griffin, and then we have Murder at Kingscote by Alyssa Maxwell. Anything to add, Allison?
Just about the exiles, that is, we can tell on the slide that Christina Baker Klein wrote The Orphan Train, which was a popular historical fiction book. A lot of book clubs used it. And as Jessica was mentioning with the Australia setting, that's kind of a fresh perspective on Australia's history. And it's a book of strong female relationships. So I definitely think that it's intriguing to me. So, and that's it. Still some more for August 25th. Yeah, again, some days seem to have more than others. So we have The Royal Governess by Wendy Holden. Sisters by Daisy Johnson. That cover itself is intriguing. Someone to Love by Mary below. That's from the Westcott series. She tends to write Regency romance. Squeeze Me by Carl Hiaasen. This is a standalone book. He writes some series, but this is murder, mystery, and political satire. I was just helping a patron find some of his books the other day, and he was talking about how funny they are. So he definitely is known for his satirical wit. Thick as Thieves by Sandra Brown. She's written lots of books, and this is a thriller about a woman whose father was involved in a heist that went wrong, and she is unearthing family secrets. And then there's The Wrong Mr. Darcy by Evelyn Lozada.
And I have so already put myself on hold for this book because if you can't already tell, I am a big Austen fan. So this book is about this character named Hara. She wants to leave town. She wants to strike out on her own, but she needs money. So she gets this job to interview the baseball rookie on the local team named Darcy. And so, of course, kind of like the original Pride and Prejudice, the two clash, you know, one's got all the pride, one's got all the prejudice. So it's a modern day sort of take on the Pride and Prejudice story. So I can't wait to read it. Okay. Into September.
Yes, a new month, September 1st. All right, All the Devils Are Here by Louise Penny. That's part of the Chief Inspector Gamache series. It's very popular. So again, I think this is book, it's either 16 or 26. One of those numbers is staying in my head, but it's a part of that series. The Book of Hidden Wonders by Polly Crosby. Chaos by Iris Johansson features a new character, CIA agent Alyssa Flynn. All right, then we have The Christmas Shop by Melody Carlson. This is the first of a few holiday books we'll be mentioning. Seems a little early, but the publishers tend to like to get the holiday books out a few months before the holiday season, so that there's a few months that people are reading them and kind of getting into that mindset. So here's The Christmas Shop by Melody Carlson. Daddy by Emma Cline. This is a collection of short stories, and Emma Cline wrote a book called The Girls. And then we have Dark Song by Christine Feehan. That's part of the Carpathian series. And Jessica, I don't know if you had additional thoughts to add.
So the Book of Hidden Wonders by Polly Crosby certainly piqued my interest. So it's about this reclusive father and daughter who live in the countryside. He's a little eccentric. He writes these kids' books and illustrates them, and it's sort of based on his daughter. But then all of a sudden, the father starts withdrawing into himself. The daughter doesn't know what's going on, and so she dives back into these books that he's written and illustrated, and she uses those to try to connect with him and possibly unravel a family secret.
We've got a lot of family secrets in these books today.
Yeah, and then also the Chaos by Iris Johansson, that is actually starting a new character, CIA agent Alyssa Flynn. So it looks like Iris is branching out a little bit. Okay. More for September.
Yes.
So we have,
go ahead.
Sorry, Interference by Brad Parks, An Ivy Hill Christmas by Julie Clausen, The Lying Life of Adults by Elena Ferrante, One for the Books by Jen McKinley, and she also writes sort of cozy mysteries, and she also writes some romance books that are in the paperback romance section. We have Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Gyasi. She also wrote The Homecoming. And so this book is about a family from Ghana living in Alabama. And then we have When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole.
Just a few things to add that The Lying Life of Adults by Elena Ferrante, she wrote My Brilliant Friend, which, and as it says on the cover there, that was a series, and this is set in Naples, Italy. The Transcendent Kingdom book, I'll read a few sentences from the description. It sounds again thought-provoking and a little bit of a different premise. So we have a character who is a 6th-year PhD candidate in neuroscience at Stanford, and this person is studying reward-seeking behavior in mice and the neural circuits of depression and addiction. And then her brother was a gifted high school athlete who died of a heroin overdose after an ankle injury left him hooked on Oxycontin. And then this character also has a suicidal mother. So the character is really trying to discover the scientific basis for the suffering. So the suffering of her mother's suicidal tendencies, as well as this brother's addiction. So she's turning to the sciences to unlock the mystery, but then is really kind of dealing with her own issues having to do with the faith tradition in which she was raised. So again, it sounds like a great book for a book discussion and a very thought-provoking title. So that's Transcendent Kingdom. That's it then for my additional thoughts on those titles. And then I think then we're moving on to September 8th, yes. Right?
And we are starting to run out of time a little bit. So unfortunately, we can't go too in-depth on some of these books, but please do ask us in the chat or find us at the library if you have any more questions or if you want to know more about any of these books. So we have Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. And as the cover on the screen says, he is the author of A Man Called Ove. And so this book is about an apartment open house going on, and a failed bank robber escaping runs in, and it becomes a hostage situation. And so the book details the people that are now stuck in the house, and so the situation that they're in. So, and then we have Before She Was Helen by Caroline B. Cooney. We have Call of the Raven by Wilbur Smith. We have The Darkest Evening by Anne Cleves, and that's part of her Vera Stanhope series. We have A Deception at Thorncrest by Ashley Weaver. And then finally, Hanging Falls by Margaret Mizushima. Elsa, anything to add?
Sure. I just want to mention Before She Was Helen by Caroline B. Cooney. So she has written a young adult series. I loved The Face in the Milk Carton when I was younger. And this obviously is an adult book. It's in the mystery section, and it's advertised for fans of Laura Lippman or Alice Feeney's books. So it's set in a South Carolina retirement community, and this woman tends to live a quiet life, but her next door neighbor, or her neighbor, goes missing. And it seems like there's actually a conspiracy and some danger. So that's a little bit on before she was Helen. I think maybe the true identity of Helen is unearthed as the book progresses.
All right, moving on.
So still on Tuesday, September 8th. So some additional titles: The Invention of Sound by Chuck Palahniuk. One by One by Ruth Ware. Now, Ruth Ware has written The Woman in Cabin 10 and The Turn of the Key, as the slide indicates. She's a very popular psychological thriller suspense author. We get a lot of questions to put her books on hold. And in this title, there are some individuals who, through work, they are at a ski chalet in France. And they're there for some conference and some team building. So they're having these meetings and they're going skiing. And they end up getting snowed in, and there's 8 coworkers. One of them ends up going out to the slopes and does not return. And then hence the title, One by One, danger ensues, and one by one others start disappearing. So it sounds like it's written in the same tradition as her previous titles. A Question of Betrayal by Anne Perry is part of the Elena Standish series. And then we have Fool's Paradise. It's by Mark Lupica, but it's part of the Robert B. Parker series or tradition. And then The Shadows in Death by J.D. Robb is part of the In Death, Eve Dallas series.
And if you can believe it, this book is number 51 in her series. And number 52 is coming out in February. So I wish I had all the time that she has, the free time. So I don't know how she gets all these books done, but kudos to her. All right. Okay, so moving on to the 15th, we have Chance of a Lifetime by Jude Devereaux. And this is actually a new series by her. It's Providence Falls Book 1. It's set in the mid 1800s Ireland, and this thief falls in love with the squire's daughter, but not a good match. They're separated, and later they're actually reunited in North Carolina. And so then we have The Killings at Kingfisher Hill by Sophie Hannah, The Librarian of Boone's Hollow by Kim Vogel Sawyer. It's another librarian book. It's set in Great Depression era in Kentucky. And Addie delivers books via horse, but the town is sort of suspicious of her, suspicious of outsiders. And so then we have The Silent Conspiracy by L.C. Shaw, and then To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. And then if the name sounds familiar, he wrote the Aragon series, the young adult youth series, many years ago. And then So this book, his first adult book, is about this girl named Kira who finds alien life on this uncolonized planet. And so it's kind of a novel of like first contact. So like first contact with aliens and what ensues after that.
Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So also we've got some more additional title for September 15th. Total Power by Vince Flynn is part of the Mitch Rapp series. Troubled Blood by Robert Galbraith. That is by, actually it's J.K. Rowling. That is her, a pen name that she writes under. The Evening and the Morning by Ken Follett. This is actually a prequel to the Pillars of the Earth series. Murder Thy Neighbor by James Patterson. This is actually a true crime thriller. So he does write some nonfiction. So this would be a true crime book that perhaps is of interest to you. And Don't Look for Me by Wendy Walker. This is a psychological thriller. It's about a woman who basically ends up walking away from her life. Her abandoned car is found, and then her older daughter investigates. She doesn't want to accept the answer that her mother just walked away from her life, thinking there's perhaps something suspicious involved with her disappearance.
And another James Patterson book. And as you can see, this release date is actually on a Monday. because James Patterson is James Patterson, quite often his books actually release on a Monday instead of Tuesdays, like most other books normally do. And so this is a novel of psychological suspense.
And the coast to coast title has to do with the fact that there's a detective and an FBI agent who are investigating these mysterious disappearances. In the book covers from coastal California to upstate New York. So there's these events that happen on each coast of the U.S. that normally you wouldn't think they're related, but they actually are. So that's how we get the title for that one. All right, Tuesday, September 22nd. That's sounding kind of like fall. So The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. She is a very popular best-selling author. And I know Jessica and I have read some of her books and are a fan of hers. She tends to not really shy away from some controversial issues and really gets the reader thinking. So in this book, The Book of Two Ways, we have an airplane, and as it's flying, they make an announcement that everyone on board has to prepare for a crash landing. So the main character is, it going through in her head, just this is obviously really serious and my life could be ending in minutes. Thankfully, the plane doesn't crash and everybody survives. But the main character, a female, she realizes as the plane's crashing, she starts thinking about a man she was involved with 15 years ago, who is now working at an archaeological dig site in Egypt. So they make an offer to everybody and say, we will now fly you after they pass a medical exam. We'll fly you wherever you want. Now, this woman has a comfortable life. She has a husband, a daughter who she loves, but part of her can't stop thinking about this, how her paths, how her and this man were involved years ago. And she also was interested in a career in the archaeological field. And now her life has taken a different turn. So I'm curious to find out what she ends up deciding. So hence The Book of Two Ways. Then we have Eli's Promise by Ronald Balson. Next to Last Stand by Craig Johnson. The Last Agent by Robert Dugoni. These are in the mystery section. This is the second book in the Charles Jenkins series. And it's an American operative in Russia on the run for his life. And it's a thriller of betrayal and internal intrigue. To Tell You the Truth by Gilly McMillan. I've read several of her books and I like them. They are in the mystery section and tend to definitely have a little bit of suspense to them as well. So in this book, we have a woman whose brother vanished in the woods when she was a child. And Lucy is our protagonist. And Lucy was the only witness. So her story of the night was crucial to the police's investigation. And 30 years later, her brother's whereabouts are still unknown. Now Lucy's actually a thriller writer, and she has a lot of fans and a husband. But her husband starts to keep some secrets and then he goes missing. So everyone's kind of suspicious as to how is it that this woman observed as a child her brother's disappearance and now her husband has disappeared. So yes, the title then, To Tell You the Truth, finally Lucy is going to tell the truth. And then the last one here, Well Played by Jen DeLuca. That's the second book. The first book is called Well Met. And they are contemporary romance that are set in a Renaissance fair. So they're supposed to be kind of fun. So again, those could be kind of lighthearted, The Well Met and Well Played by Jen DeLuca.
Okay, last slide of the day. So on Tuesday, September 29th, we have The Brightest Star by Fern Michaels. We have Christmas Cupcake Murder by Joanne Fluke. Dreaming Death by Heather Graham. Happily This Christmas by Susan Mallory. The Kingdom by Yo Nesbo. And then The Return by Nicholas Sparks. And then as we were talking earlier, around September and definitely October is when publishers really start releasing their Christmas books. So the Fern Michaels book, the Joanne Fluke book, and Happily This Christmas by Susan Mallory are all Christmas books. And so Dreaming Death by Heather Graham, that's part of her Crew of Hunters series. And then The Return by Nicholas Sparks is about this man named Trevor who returns home from Afghanistan and, living a quiet life, but he falls for the local sheriff named Natalie. And also in town is this teenager named Callie who can actually shed some light on Trevor's grandfather's death. So a lot of intertwined family stories and sort of, some intimacy. So I'm sure there'll be lots of fans eager to get their hands on this book.
Yes, his are often made into movies. Also wanted to mention that The Christmas Cupcake Murder by Joanne Fluke is part of the Hannah Swenson series. And The Kingdom by Yo Nesbo, he's written the Harry Hole novels. And yes, his tend to be popular in the mystery, kind of like the dark noir mystery genre. So yes, I think that takes us, that is we got through a lot. I know we definitely covered a lot. We actually have one more slide, I believe, right? Or yes, not book titles, but we have our website on there, schaumburglibrary.org. Again, the fiction desk's phone number, feel free to call that anytime. And then we also have the e-media helpline. So Jessica and I are part of a team of other staff members, other librarians who will answer your e-media questions. So we offer ebooks, audiobooks, streaming videos, movies, music, and that's all accessible through our website. And we are glad to help give some descriptions as to how to go through that over the phone. We have done appointments in the past in person, but of course with distancing, we need to do that safely. So what we probably would not be able, or we would not be able to touch your device as of right now. But we're also happy to help with that because with your Schaumburg Township District Library card, you have access to literally thousands of items that you could download to a computer, a phone, a tablet, and listen to audiobooks or even read ebooks. So that's another option for you as well. And I know some patrons have gone exclusively digital. So, but we also have print books are not going away. So we have plenty of those as well. We do want to thank all of you for attending. I know we covered a lot and we couldn't get into details on every single book, but again, we tried to pick out ones that we thought were particularly interesting or maybe a little bit different. And also knowing that reading is very personal and there's all different types of readers out there. It's funny because we all have different reading interests. So we do try to cover a variety of genres. We'll go ahead and take that off. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Just type them in. I don't see any right now, but we can wait a couple minutes if there are any.
All right, and then for anyone watching on YouTube, thank you for watching along with us. And this should be uploaded on YouTube, I believe, at some point. So if you came in the middle, if you missed part of it, you should be able to go back and watch the whole program.
Now, we do these programs pretty periodically. So we do hope to have another one in the fall. We're thinking October. So a book bonanza. So please make sure you're keeping an eye on the website or they are sending out a digital guide. And we also